Picture this. You're sitting across from someone who seems perfectly normal. They smile warmly, ask about your day, and show genuine interest in your life. But behind those kind eyes lies something far more sinister. A calculated mind that's already 3 steps ahead, pulling invisible strings you don't even know exist. Welcome back to where we dive deep into the unseen forces that shape human behavior. I'm your host, and today we're entering the shadowy realm of manipulation psychology. By the end of this journey, you'll understand not just how manipulation works, but why it's so devastatingly effective, and how to protect yourself from becoming someone else's puppet. But first, let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah thought she was in love. She thought she had found her soulmate. What she didn't realize was that she had become the perfect victim in a psychological game that had been orchestrated from the very first hello. To understand manipulation, we must first understand what it truly is. Manipulation isn't just lying or being mean. It's the art of influencing someone's thoughts, emotions, and behaviors without their conscious awareness. It's psychological warfare disguised as normal interaction. The human brain, for all its complexity, has predictable patterns. We're wired to trust, to seek approval, to avoid conflict, and to maintain consistency in our beliefs. Manipulators don't just know these patterns, they exploit them with surgical precision. Think of your mind as a sophisticated computer. Most people interact with the user interface, the conscious thoughts and obvious emotions. But manipulators? They've learned to access the source code. They bypass your logical defenses and speak directly to your subconscious programming. Sarah's story began at a coffee shop. The man who approached her, let's call him Marcus, didn't use pickup lines or flashy displays. Instead, he did something far more powerful. He mirrored her body language, matched her speaking pace, and asked questions that made her feel uniquely understood. Within minutes, Sarah felt an inexplicable connection. She thought it was chemistry. It was actually psychological manipulation in its purest form. Every master manipulator operates on 4 fundamental pillars. Understanding these is like learning to see the matrix. Once you know what to look for, you can never unsee it. Pillar 1. Information gathering. Before a manipulator makes their move, they become psychological detectives. They study your social media, listen to your casual conversations, and pay attention to your reactions. They're mapping your emotional landscape, identifying your insecurities, desires, and pressure points. Marcus spent weeks observing Sarah before their chance encounter. He knew she was recently divorced, struggling with self-doubt, and desperately seeking validation. He knew she posted inspirational quotes about independence while secretly craving someone to take care of her. This wasn't stalking. It was strategic intelligence gathering. Pillar 2. Emotional calibration. Once they have your psychological profile, manipulators become emotional chameleons. They present themselves as exactly what you need them to be. If you're insecure, they become your biggest supporter. If you're lonely, they become your most attentive companion. If you're ambitious, they become your greatest believer. Pillar 3. Dependency creation. This is where the trap closes. Gradually, almost imperceptibly, they become indispensable to your emotional well-being. They create situations where you need them, then position themselves as the solution. They become your drug, and like any addiction, the withdrawal becomes unbearable. Pillar 4. Reality distortion. The final pillar is perhaps the most insidious. They don't just change how you feel, They change how you think. They rewrite your reality, making you question your own perceptions, memories, and judgment. Psychologists call this gaslighting, but it's really reality hijacking. Here's where it gets truly fascinating and terrifying. Modern neuroscience has revealed exactly why manipulation works so well. Your brain isn't the rational, logical machine you think it is. It's actually three brains in one. The reptilian brain that controls survival instincts, the limbic brain that processes emotions, and the neocortex that handles logical thinking. Manipulators bypass your logical neocortex and speak directly to your emotional limbic system and survival-focused reptilian brain. They trigger ancient psychological programs that evolved over millions of years. Programs designed to keep you alive in a dangerous world, but which make you vulnerable in our modern social environment. When Marcus told Sarah she was different from other women, he wasn't just flattering her. He was triggering her brain's reward system, flooding her neural pathways with dopamine and oxytocin, the same chemicals released during drug use and falling in love. Her brain literally became addicted to his validation. But here's the truly diabolical part. Manipulators also exploit something called cognitive dissonance. When your actions don't match your beliefs, your brain experiences psychological discomfort. To resolve this discomfort, your brain often changes your beliefs rather than your actions. Sarah found herself making excuses for Marcus's increasingly controlling behavior. When he criticized her friends, she told herself he was just protective. When he isolated her from family, she convinced herself they didn't understand their special connection. Her brain was rewriting her reality to maintain psychological consistency. The manipulation was so subtle, so gradual, that Sarah never noticed the shift. It's like being in a slowly heating pot of water. By the time you realize you're being cooked, it's too late to jump out. Now let's examine the specific techniques that make manipulation so devastatingly effective. These aren't just theoretical concepts. They're weapons-grade psychological tools used by everyone from cult leaders to corporate executives to toxic partners. The foot in the door technique. This starts with small, seemingly innocent requests that gradually escalate. Marcus began by asking Sarah to meet for coffee, then dinner, then to cancel plans with friends just this once. Each small compliance made the next request easier to accept. Before she knew it, Sarah had isolated herself from her support network without realizing it was happening. 6 months into their relationship, Sarah was a shadow of her former self. The confident, successful woman had been replaced by someone who second-guessed every decision, who walked on eggshells, who had lost touch with everyone who truly cared about her. The breaking point came during what should have been a romantic dinner. Marcus casually mentioned that he'd been helping a female co-worker through a difficult time. When Sarah expressed discomfort, he exploded. "You're so insecure. You're suffocating me. Maybe Jennifer appreciates me because she's not constantly paranoid like you." But something in Sarah's brain clicked. For the first time in months, she saw the pattern clearly. The setup, the explosion, the blame shifting. It was all so calculated, so rehearsed. She realized she wasn't going crazy. She was being systematically destroyed. Breaking free from manipulation isn't just about recognizing it. It's about understanding why we fall for it in the first place. We're social creatures, hardwired to seek connection and avoid rejection. Manipulators exploit these fundamental human needs. The key to psychological immunity lies in understanding your own vulnerabilities. What are your emotional triggers? What do you desperately want to hear? What are you afraid of losing? Manipulators are expert at identifying these weak points and exploiting them. Sarah's vulnerability was her need for validation after her divorce. She was hungry for someone to make her feel special, chosen, worthy of love. Marcus fed that hunger until she became dependent on his approval for her sense of self-worth. Building resistance requires developing what psychologists call emotional regulation, the ability to manage your feelings without external validation. It means trusting your instincts, maintaining your independence, and never allowing someone else to become your sole source of happiness or self-worth. Sarah left Marcus that night and never looked back. She rebuilt her life, reconnected with friends and family, and slowly regained her sense of self. She thought her nightmare was over. But 6 months later, she discovered something that chilled her to the bone. A mutual acquaintance mentioned seeing Marcus with another woman, someone who looked remarkably similar to Sarah. Same profession, same vulnerabilities, same recent divorce. Curious and concerned, Sarah did some digging. What she found was a pattern spanning years. Marcus wasn't just a manipulator. He was a predator with a specific type and a refined methodology. He had notebooks filled with psychological techniques, detailed profiles of his targets, and most disturbing of all, references to someone he called the teacher. The manipulation Sarah experienced wasn't random cruelty. It was a carefully orchestrated psychological experiment. She hadn't just been a victim, she'd been a test subject. As Sarah stared at the evidence spread across her kitchen table, one question haunted her. How many others were there? How many women had been broken down and rebuilt according to someone's twisted psychological blueprint? And somewhere out there, the teacher was still operating, still training others in the dark arts of human manipulation. The puppet master behind the puppet masters, pulling strings that most people don't even know exist. The most terrifying part? You might have already met them. They could be your boss, your neighbor, your friend, or the charming stranger who just bought you coffee. They're walking among us, studying us, learning our weaknesses, and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. So ask yourself, in the grand game of psychological manipulation, are you the player or are you the game? The choice for now is still yours.